ma'am, and I want to really thank her from the bottom of my heart for joining in today. Of course, ma'am has many accomplishments, but the first line that I want to say here is that ma'am was my PhD supervisor, and I did my PhD under her. So, when I requested her to take a book discussion, because I want to bring in all these reading voices to all of you and all perspectives. So, ma'am was very kind enough to immediately say yes. And, the first date that I asked her or requested her, she was gaga about it. Of course, this was supposed to be on Zoom, but a lot of PhD vivas all during COVID and afterwards have been on Zoom. So, ma'am has supervised many such this thing. But today, I hope you are going to make the most of it. So, I bring to you Dr. Meenakshi Pawha, who has retired as a professor from the Department of English and Modern European Languages at the University of Lucknow. Her interests include Indian drama, folk, theatre, climate change, translation. In fact, I know my colleague Smita, she's teaching all of you children in Delhi, by the way. So Smita has written her PhD on climate change, and Smita is ma'am's, PhD candidate again. And film studies, I know myself and one more of in fact, she was my batchmate from my school who did it under ma'am. Mellon Fellow at Harvard University 2017, a Fulbright Scholar at NYU in 2006, and Charles Wallace India Trust Fellow at Cambridge University. Ma'am has authored two books, The Dramatic Art and Vision of Tom Stoppard and Alan Ayckbourn, Chasing the Comic Muse in 2007. Because of ma'am, I met Tom Stoppard at the Jaipur Literature Festival. So, that was a life-changing experience. Her translations of short stories and essays in literary criticism have been published in uh, South Asian Review, Indian Literature, and Hindi language discourse writing. Uh, I know that Dr. Pawha is an ardent theatre enthusiast. That's why, she has written a book on Tom Stoppard's works, a voracious reader and an avid traveler and a cinephile. She's fond of listening to music in any form and is passionate about the rich cultural heritage of India. So I have been very blessed to have ma'am as my PhD supervisor, a very, very understanding professor, and learned a lot of life lessons from her, other than the work that I was able to produce, uh, which is still awaiting to be published, but I hope it does soon, and I'm able to make my professor very proud. So I hope all of you can wish ma'am a good evening in the chat box. So, ma'am, a lot of good evenings are coming your way. And we'll be handling your PPT from here. So if you just signal us next, then we will change the slides for you. Thank you so much, children. I hope you enjoy this session and learn a lot from it. Over to ma'am.
Thank you, Surabhi, for that very generous introduction. And let me just add very quickly that Dr. Surabhi has been very, very humble in not stating, and obviously let that be my privilege, that she was one of my most, shall I say, the brightest of them all, and very hardworking, which I think didn't just limit to her PhD program and working towards her defense of her thesis, which she has the unique distinction in the history of the University of Lucknow for having Vishal Bharadwaj personally having sought an invitation for an open viva to be present, because her work was on his Hindi adaptations of Shakespearean plays. So, and she, of course, continues to add many feathers to her cap, which makes me extremely proud and happy. And apart from professional excellence, what really makes me deeply content and satisfied within is that she holds on to core traditional values, which I think can never go out of fashion. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for those lovely greetings in the chat box. I address and acknowledge each one of them via this address. And let us, without much ado, begin with this presentation. But before I begin, let me very quickly add that if you may have Googled, some of you may have already been used to this, having skimmed or read The Prophet, because that's usually around this time when people find themselves groping, looking around for Kahlil Gibran. Incidentally, it can either be said Gibran or the American pronunciation is Gibran, but an Arabic research scholar of mine told me that it's in Arabic, the G is the G is not G, but J. So I choose to stick to the Arabic. You're free to choose and pronounce whichever way. So having said that, Gibran, is all of you are aspiring to be lawyers. This is a go-to book. And I understand what Dr. Sahai was telling you, that you are totally drowned in work and all these competitive, heebie-jeebies that you may be going through. However, we need to squeeze, we need to steal time for these little gems. And that's the reason why I chose where you could just, pick up anything from anywhere. It doesn't require sequentiality. And also, as you know, I've titled my presentation as Life Lessons. Everything that is around us in the name of literature is nothing but a mirror held up to society, from society, within society. So my very earnest appeal to you is, don't see it something out of yourself. See it something as very much within, that you can ingest, that you can chew and digest, to use the Baconian term. So coming to Life Lessons from the Prophet by Gibran. Very quickly, I'm not making into a literature appreciation. I'm only going to just kind of touch the tip of the iceberg, so that if you want to unwind with Gibran, you can find more about him and you're free to meander your way through. So as you know, late 19th century, died very young. And can we have the next slide, please? Next slide. Yeah. So just to give you a sense, some context to what the man looked like, this is the young prophet, because it is in 1897 that this photograph was done, and there were two major influences in his life. Next slide, please. Somebody has said the slide is not visible. Could the tech team, can we just go back to that slide? Some student could not. Can you see it now, my dear girl? Soumya? Or whoever, Pratiksha? She still cannot see it. So just see if there's some local issue there. Can others see it, please? Just raise your hand so that the tech team
Yeah,
can.
Sibyl, Pratiksha, we'll just text you, okay?
Yeah. So can we go on? Yeah. So after Shakespeare and Lao Tzu, or the Chinese philosopher, Gibran is the third best-selling author. So you can imagine the length and breadth of the world's readership that he has captured. But at this time, let me make a quick digression. Despite the fact that there are more than 20 million copies and counting, I don't normally believe in statistics, so I'd rather refrain, whatever. What you will notice is that no American academia has ever, soiled their hands, shall we say, because, what we call the post-colonial angst that we know is because he's an Orientalist, he was a Lebanese. Of course, he became an American citizen later on. But how these lenses determine who becomes great and who remains in the fringes. So, as discerning readers, we also have to be very careful that these are the politics that play out at every stage. The politics of publishing is certainly not in the domain of this discussion, but I thought I must just sow the seed for you because you're all thinking people, that you must have that in mind, that because of this, he doesn't have that kind of academic inquiry because, he was influenced by Rumi. He was largely influenced by Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy. So he becomes, quote unquote, an Orientalist. So Edward Said also fought against that. Maybe at some stage you will encounter those discourses also. And very quickly, to contextualize, the book, The Prophet, was published in 1923 and is, in some editions, it is limited to 26. The one that I have, which I would like to share, is an old one. And you can see all the things are frayed, but I still try to hold the dust cover as much as I can, preserve it. Has 28 chapters. So, of course, the paucity of time doesn't permit me to, but I thought through that what would be those elements in this book that is likely to impact your present life later on, as we all visualize it to unfold. So I've been a bit eclectic in choosing certain aspects and leaving out the rest. So Al Mustafa is the person who's the chief protagonist, the main character. There are many, many characters. We are not getting into all that. But Al Mustafa is the one who will talk of love, because he's the one who's asked to deliver his musings to the people because he's about to set sail. Next, please. Next slide, please. So, part of it, I've just told you that he was of an origin of Lebanese descent, of Lebanese origin, and born in 1883. They migrated because what the English phrase is piss poor, but they were very, very poor. The father had a reasonable business, but he was very lackadaisical and not responsible with his familial commitment. And finally, he died of alcoholism. So the mother brought the kids to Boston, and they were in a very, very, what shall I say, ghettoized community, not a very fashionable neighborhood as you and me understand today. And I personally feel, and many others who have cared to dabble in his scholarship, that Fred Holland Day and Mary Haskell. Mary Haskell was his teacher, who was 9 years his senior, but got involved emotionally, which he didn't really kind of reciprocate. And she was so deeply involved. I think, larger share of his intellectual grooming was done in Boston under the stewardship of Mary Haskell. And of course, Fred Holland Day exposed him to his salon. He was apparently, Day was apparently gay in those times. These were shady, cloistered mute, to use the Shakespearean term, and people weren't very forthright about it. And he extremely deified, apotheosized Oscar Wilde. So those dots you can connect, and what Day, and he was of course a professional photographer as well. So he got to meet a lot of people through Fred, and subsequently through Mary Haskell. In fact, Mary Haskell paid through his education in Paris the kind of exposure that he had. He met William Blake, and he also met Rodin. These things are not verified, but some biographers have mentioned, and we take that as some element of truth being there, because Rodin was not there to verify when the publishers, Alfred A. Knopf, the first one who did the print run of The Prophet. In fact, Alfred Knopf publication world, rather the company laughed their way to the banks, but he wasn't, again, not very kind to Kahlil Gibran's intellectual vigor. So these are the little things that I will keep injecting as and when it comes to my mind. When I say this, that Gibran stayed emotionally distant, is because he did not allow Mary Haskell to kind of have the acknowledgement that she was seeking in the relationship. But we'll begin with Of Love. I think Mary Haskell was a true example of what true love is all about. So next slide, please. So I have these little quotes. When love beckons to you, follow him, though his ways are hard and steep, and when his wings enfold you, yield to him, though the sword hidden among his pinions may wound you. Now, this, we are not into an RC here. This is just to spur the sides of your intent. This is just to set you thinking of what the Generation Z, or now whenever they come into full bloom, Generation Alpha would think of love. And that's the reason the book also begins with that. But I also chose not to tamper with it because there is a sense of sequentiality why the book sticks to what it does. Love, we can say as much. Reams have been exhausted. There is no limit to the kind of publications that have taken world over. So we are not going to trudge that path at all. Having said that, yet, what is happening to this love? Is it love that is what it is in its purest form? Most of the times when we talk of love, it's nothing but selfish sponging off. And I'm out, once we are through, I'm open to, you can tear me to smithereens, I'm open to all that correction, but these are observations. My personal life was too blessed, so I don't have personal experience, but these are observations, because being in an academic world, you become a kind of a agony aunt to so many of your students who come back with so much of pain, rejection, depression, and the spin-offs. I don't have to elucidate too many of those examples. Some of you are already smarting in that pain, hurt, licking your wounds, what have you. So that's why I call this session Life Lessons. From where to where? Can we not reclaim it? Those are points, I don't think they're points of debate, but it's because the discourse has gone askew. And that we will expand later when we throw open to discussion, if you are willing enough to participate. Next, please. Next slide, please. So, when you found true love, wouldn't not that be a very natural trajectory to move on to solidifying, to finding more terra firma to walk the rest of your life? So, of marriage, all of you have read this. I don't think I should be reading it again, but few lines I will highlight. But let there be spaces in your togetherness. Love one another, but make not a bond of love. Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each of you be alone. And what does he end with? That the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress don't grow into in each other's shadow. The space is so important for a I won't say just marriage, for any healthy relationship, be it a parent-child, be it a girlfriend-boyfriend, be it at workplace, if you have a boss who's breathing down your neck, and if you have a girlfriend. I don't recall. There was a hilarious comedy. I do recall that Deshmukh guy, Ritesh Deshmukh, was there. I am totally blurred as to who the others were, but it was all about, because I vividly remember that his wife had a problem about going to the temple all the time, and some other wives all the time clinging. Now, I'm not saying that the wives only have the clinging sensibility and they kind of hang on to your cuffs, collars. No, it is both ways. The male spouse or the female spouse, when we love, it's not about owning each other. That's why Gibran is so alive and so read at every stage. And anybody and everybody who is in some kind of a turmoil, emotional or whatever, will always turn to Kahlil Gibran's The Prophet. So just see, let there be spaces in your togetherness. These are the takeaways that, if at all, some of you can ingest it. I don't think I can reach out to all, because there are levels and levels of receiving. But if some of you, maybe a handful, can ingest and internalize and bring into praxis, then I have earned my bread for this session for today. So for each, let each of you be alone. And here I must very humbly share my own life script. My husband was an amazing husband and spouse. He's no more with us. I lost him 10 years back. Both of us hadn't read Gibran. See, that is the beauty of it. But later on, when we stumbled upon this book, we found that intuitively we were following most of it on marriage. So when these lines jump out of the pages for me, let there be spaces in your togetherness, are very lived experiences. They are not just lines in a book. And that let each of you be alone. Because you, two individuals are different species altogether. Here I'm not using in terms of the wild. We all have our own DNA scripting. I mean, our own siblings have different chemistry within their responses. That's why I remember reading it somewhere, that a set of parents are not the same parents for their own children. Now, it doesn't mean that they are wicked. It's just that because they're responding to those offsprings at the level where they are. So they're obviously not the same as what they are to you. And it has nothing to do with biases. Of course, there are all kinds of narratives. I'm not at all denying those narratives, but we are talking in the larger schema of things. Parents try their best to be what they are. So this is, for me, this is the takeaway. Make not a bond of love. तू मेरा मैं तेरी, कहाँ जाता है दीवाने, तुम कहाँ थे, I was ringing you up and where the hell. Why can't he or she have that space? Why do you have to climb up the ladder and scream from the rooftops? Those are the kind of things that I want you to take away after this session is over. Next slide, please. And of course, this is the time when he wrote, 1923. And mind you, the First World War was over and there was so much of churning and everything was devastated. And the Second War was to follow. But this is that interregnum, antebellum, as the Americans say. But in today's 21st century, marriage doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have children. I'm aware of those choices as well, and no problems with that, to each his own. But we are here talking of Gibran's trajectory, of children. Some of you who may have read the book have read Your children are not your children. They come through you, but not from you. What is he trying to say? This is a most fantastic thing that I love about Gibran. And what again I have to share, and very proudly so, that my parents hadn't heard of him, but they lived every line of what Gibran talks of parenting. आपके बच्चे आपके द्वारा हैं, आपके हैं नहीं. No sense of ownership. No thrusting their worldview on us. Always respecting what we had to say. And much before it became part of the advertising blitzkrieg where children are decision makers, believe you me, in the late 60s, we were participants in discussion, in the family discussions of decision making, which refrigerator, which this, which that, because they both believed, particularly my mother, that the best thing that you can give to your children is independent minds, where they are able to stand on them feet, think on their feet, and not lean back on any. Of course, we always turn back for counsel and guidance, because their experience can never, ever, we can never match and outlive that. But having said that, again, this is something that I have lived through, because we never had any, that, what shall I say, those this world and that world, or tum nahi samajhte aur hum tumse zyada jante hain. I was trained, since class 7, I thought I was going to be a civil servant, and everything was gearing towards that. Once I came to my MA, and just 6 months before, with all earnest preparation, Dr. Amrita Das would bear witness, suddenly I had a moment of epiphany, because at some point, civil services were being compromised because political life was at its worst nadir, and it had started infringing on civil servants and bureaucracy. So somewhere I cringed and I said, that's not the world I want to inhabit. Not once my parents said, what about all that expenses? What about this? What about that? They were not encouraging me to be lackadaisical, I think, and that's why my brother and I respect them so much, is that they respected my decision. Said, go ahead. And I switched to academics, and I have never, ever regretted having turned away from that path. So they lived it, they practiced it, that they are sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. And I would urge, time is limited, so I cannot go deeper into it, but I would urge you to go back and read the chapter of children, and very democratically share it with your parents without aggression and without us versus them. Have a dialogue, see if they can see your point of view. Otherwise, you will have your time. There's time for everyone, as T.S. Eliot said, time for me and time for you. Next slide, please. Next slide. Of giving. I just love it. I must have read God knows how many times. You give but little when you give of your possessions. When you give of yourself, that you truly give. But what have relationships been reduced to, with due apologies? There is no giving. I'm sorry to say that. What is in it for me? What is in it for me? What is in it for me? Every relationship across the spectrum is about what is in it for me. Completely divorced from this wonderful philosopher's idea of giving, because he's not saying something out of the world. It's been part of every civilizational ethos. It's the ruptures, it's the divorce from the natural. And let me just very quickly elucidate you with one example. Look at nature. How much of giving? Unconditionally. You cannot quantify the giving. I mean, I can go into every aspect. Look at the mountains. It's not germane to our discussion. You're a bright set of youngsters who know the amplification, who know the ripple effects of the different examples that you can feed into your discussions. I don't have to give those. But what I'm trying to, steer the path, that having brought about this rupture, not you and me, it's been there. The decadence has been there. We are simply, but my appeal to you is that why is it all about where is that? And to say that, oh, where is she from? She's so dated. She's so antediluvian. No, I'm not. I could be antediluvian for 100 things, but I know that this is one of those core traditional values that sadly has been buried deeper than the tomb of Tutankhamen. Somebody really needs to dig it out. And look at what he says. I mean, he was known for his aphoristic style. Anybody who's been exposed to Bacon, or if not, just go online, you will love him, because every sentence is pregnant with thought and meaning. He was also a philosopher, a brilliant man. So Bacon was 16th century. We have here early 20th century. So obviously we understand that all those influences in Gibran, all of us are a sum total of influences, subliminal, conscious, unconscious, the very obvious ones, as in Gibran's, Holland Day or Mary Haskell, but so many. He was also a huge, ardent admirer of Rumi. He's my favorite too. So, this kind of, it's not a mishmash. It's eclecticism at its purest best. And what is he trying? Why has it not died down? 100 years, and we are discussing the Prophet. There's a film, there's an animation in which Salma Hayek has, been part of that project. Why would a Hollywood producer sink those millions of dollars if it were antediluvian? Because it speaks across civilizational memory and history. And that's what makes any book a work of classic, when you go back to it again and again and again. So it is well to give when asked, but it is better to give when unasked, through understanding. Again, I have to pay tribute to my mom, my mother, whom we called Ma, who had no idea. She was an extremely intelligent lady. उस ज़माने में हमारी नानी ने 5 daughters थी, सबको पढ़ाया. So you can imagine the kind of educational background I come from. And Ma was her school head girl, and then she got the highest in history and so on. She taught us. She said, बेटा अगर कुछ भी देना है ना किसी को, ये सब मत दो, चीजें मत दो, understanding दो. She hadn't read, heard of Kahlil Gibran. Why am I bringing this? Because These are universal values. They are not coming to us from Gibran. That's the whole idea. Gibran is simply a conduit. It's there in our scriptures, it's there, but sadly, how many of us go to our scriptures? Everybody's religion has the same universal values. It's not the prerogative of Gibran alone. It's not that I'm stealing his thunder. Certainly not. So, where is that understanding? Where has it flown away? That is why all of you are struggling with so much of fragility and emotional ... Everybody is on a short fuse because there is no understanding. It's over and dusted with. It's again treated as though it cannot survive. But the truth of the matter is that all core traditional values sustain all civilizations. They can never go out of fashion. And I remember reading Muralidharan, Sridhar Muralidharan, the Metro Man. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing or saying the wrong name. But the crux of it is that when he was demitting office, there was this huge ad in an article on his leaving office. And so the Times of India correspondent asked the very obvious question that what is it that you're looking in your successor? And he said this: I'm looking for core traditional values of honesty, sincerity, blah, 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 5, 6, something. Because now you can say, oh, it's all blah. No, it's not. Why? Let's turn to our environment. The dhobi that your mom deals with, the bartanwali that comes home, the I think we are pan-India, so I'll refrain from using Hindi. It is not fair to those connecting from elsewhere. So the utensil or the home help, the house helps that come, the driver that your dad employs or your mom has, what are you looking in those people, and why do you give your left and right arm to retain them? Because they are honest, they are punctual, they are loyal. So how the hell can we say that these values are out of currency? Again, point of reflection to look within. Next slide, please. Of clothes. Your clothes conceal much of your beauty, yet they hide not the unbeautiful. The famous dictum goes, clothes maketh a man. But why I choose this? That no matter how many brands that we wear, if our soul is not dressed well, nothing works. If you find someone with a very, very powerful aura, he or she may not be wearing branded clothes. That aura comes from within. Also, why I choose to discuss this and walk you through all on this reflection is that there is so much of obsession and the injection of consumerism has consumed us beyond repair. So we keep buying and things tumble out of our closet with labels still intact because we've forgotten that they were there, and now they are out of fashion, so we won't be found dead because we are all fashion slaves. And also, there is a reason why I choose to talk of clothes. It's not that I'm debunking well-dressed people, personalities. Of course, it makes an impression. Clothes maketh a man. But, or a woman. But this whole obsession, of not repeating. To you, young people who are going to take this century forward, when the Prime Minister talks of 2040, it's for you. But no government can do what we all can do individually, because it is that little drop in the ocean that makes all the difference. So fashion industry is a huge toll on climate. That is why those of you who may be catching reality shows, you find celebrities repeating outfits. That's the subliminal signal to say and endorse slow fashion. Some of you may have the means, some of your batchmates may not have the means to buy branded. It is for all those. And I personally don't believe in brands. I believe my late Professor Raj Bisaria said, style is not determined by price tags. And I follow that to the T. He said that 350 rupees kota sari, if somebody can stand out in a crowd, that's style. You don't have to wear a 3 lakh Tarun Tahiliani or Manish Malhotra. It's not to decry their creativity, their beautiful art pieces. So be it. But that's not everything. That's the point I'm trying to make. And that we will not be driven and let that determine who we are. So I thought I must share this with you. If you have any takeaways, I will find myself gratified. Next slide, please. Of eating and drinking. What I've already hinted in the giving part, this is everything what nature gives, that we are devouring and we are destroying. So I am very, very concerned. I don't believe I can be a Medha Patkar or a Sundarlal Bahuguna. I don't believe in that. I believe doing my little drop in the ocean on a daily basis to minimize my carbon footprint. For me, that's important, that I don't waste food. I eat what they call glocal, which is not glocal meaning that which is global is local. No. For me, glocal is that which we have in our country. Why the hell do we have to spend money on quinoa and on these exotic avocados and whatever? Because I don't believe in it. There are many, many equivalents everywhere. Geography doesn't practice partisanship. It gives adequately everywhere that where humanity exists. You don't have to make a hole in a pocket on a budgetary level to buy all these exotica. That is the reason why I thought I must share with you. Of course, he also hints at that how the anthropomorphism, that means the centrality of human beings, is what is taking a toll on this planet. And we think it's happening somewhere. Oh, it's not going to. I mean, look at the greed that here the climate change scientists, activists, academics are going blue in the face to say that global warming and climate change and what we call tiramisu beer, all that cannot be in this discussion, but I would love to. That's why I'll be sharing my email anytime you feel like joining on a group like this. We can have a freewheeling discussion, but what I'm trying to say is that you have the greed of so many countries. I'm not here running down anybody, but it's all there in the public domain. It's not some kind of a secret James Bond dossier that I'm telling you and it's a kind of an aha moment. No, it's all there in the public domain, that they're waiting for the polar ice to melt and they are going to scramble for the mineral mine. As budding lawyers, you need to have your spine straight, my girls and boys. Otherwise, nothing will be left for you to practice. So this is another thing. The kind of offal that United States alone produces can feed the entire Africa that is dying of starvation. But who cares? Next. Next slide, please. I chose this specifically for all of you because all of you are aspiring lawyers. You delight in laying down laws, yet you delight more in breaking them. Let's not go into very highfalutin legal terminology because A, I'm not equipped to use that. I do not have that lexicon. But as I said, around us, we don't have to be Mother Teresa's. We don't have to be firebrands. But each one of us, I've always believed, I've always held on to this notion that, that light that comes on your computer when the camera is on, we are just that in the big scheme. And now with NASA bringing in those many galaxies and all, I'm not getting into astrophysics, but what I'm trying to say that we are just that, if not lesser. But in that, if each one of us, 140 plus billion and counting, were to do our bit, and let's represent it with that little thing that is right here on my computer screen, how much would our country be lit up? That's my humble submission. So we don't have to, Arey chodo yaar, I mean, forget it. This is, what difference is going to make by us not doing this and not buying this, that, or the other? Of course, everything counts. So coming back to this discussion of laws, how many of you youngsters are responsible citizens when you're riding pillion on a two-wheeler? Oh, you're raring, what in Chandigarh they call garing. The wind is blowing and you know what. But the price that one pays with that one single accident is life transforming. And life is a gift. Why risk it? Why just give it away to a vegetable-like existence? Because that's not in our control. What will lead to what? And no parsimony. Parsimony means stinginess in buying a good quality helmet. Is there a price for life? Because I have to use this, which a Bengali maid of mine said, Sasta teen avastha, means it will only be cheap if it is compromised on 3 fronts. So you always pay for quality. That's why I thought I must share this with you, that I mean, there's much more he writes, but again, those who have cared to read, know that I have just culled out that which is part of your life. Next slide, please. Of crime and punishment. Anybody can do a wrong. It's deeply philosophical. So essentially, and as lawyers, that's what you will be doing. You will be giving everybody that chance to defend themselves and not judged till the judgment day, literally and metaphorically. Who are we to judge? And we cannot have a very, what shall I say, a holier than thou attitude. All of us have feet of clay. We don't know at what point our vulnerabilities pull us down. That's that gentle reminder that he sets out to the humanity at large. Commit a wrong unto others and therefore unto yourself, because here I must take recourse to the Buddhist philosophy. And why Buddhist philosophy? To all religions per se, because I practice Buddhist philosophy, so I'm closer to it. Every religion is all pervasive with this, and that is that the law of cause and effect. In India, we talk the theory of karma. The West is averse to it. They hate the word karma. So they have to say law of cause and effect, which has been now proven by the realm of quantum physics. Every action breeds an equal strong opposite reaction, meaning that is the theory of relativity of Einstein. But what the law of karma says, the law of cause and effect says, that what you throw has to come back, good or bad. Let there be no mistake. That's what he's hinting at. Unto others and therefore unto yourself. So I'm going to bitch around, I'm going to pull somebody else's carpet in the so-called cutthroat competitive world, and I'm going to rationalize it as the Aesop's fox. Sorry. Cholbe na. It won't work. It's as strict as the law of gravity. Thought that this was something that you could reflect, you could talk about, and anything where you feel that I stand to be corrected, we can have a brainstorming whenever you all as a group. Individually won't be possible, group I'm raring to go. Next slide, please. So we come to the end of our presentation. So what is his enduring legacy? The fact that 100 years, 122 years later, you care to engage in a session like this. And here I will bring in what Dr. Surbhi Sahai said in the opening remarks while we were struggling and trying to get this PPT on to the system, is that it is kind of, I'm wrapping it up, that these are not, she's not lost her head. She has her head screwed on her shoulders, and they are looking at the larger good. Because the legacy, here I'm taking it beyond Gibran's legacy, the legacy of reading. It is directly linked. After all, your profession would be nothing but reading. But what I'm enjoying now, post-superannuation, I enjoyed reading my academic assignments. I was always one of those, call me wonky, call me whatever. I was like a live fire when it was a new text that was announced that had to be, every 3 years, University of Lucknow has the unique distinction of changing. They're very, very abreast with everything across the board, not just our department, and our department was primarily overtly proactive. And I would be raring because the Gemini in me would, kind of say, now it's getting predictable for me to teach. And just when I was feeling that, this was like a breath of fresh air, a revision in the syllabi. Why I'm saying it is that all cognitive studies are bringing in that 10 minutes of bedtime reading brings about the synapses, the fantastic neurotransmitter communications. That's what synapses are all about, the new connections in the brain, are all stimulated. You stay away from digital world and blah, blah. Whatever it is, we are not going to go into all that. Let's go to the crux of it all. Reading is your finest adornment. You will stand out in any gathering without your having to, inch your way, manipulate. You will always be picked up because you are a reader. So I cannot overemphasize enough, and I'm dovetailing the arguments that Dr. Surbhi Sahai said because I happened to listen to it while she was addressing you all, that take time out, steal those moments, because reading is going to do wonderful things to your cognitive functions, not scrolling down. And you all are aware that neither Bill Gates nor Steve Jobs, with all the brouhaha and all the fanfare to the business of the world of computers, they never let their children touch it till they were 16. So surely there is some thing that they knew, which of course now is all out in the open. And I'm not saying we have to debunk. We have to make an intelligent use, find Buddha's middle path. We are not going into the dark ages, certainly not. What has spiraled, what has come forward is not to be pulled back, certainly not. But there has to be a middle path. And that Buddha's middle path is the win-win. I can put my wager on it and I can hold my stand on it, that that's the only path. Even in the national address to the nation last night, that was the essence, that the path of peace through power, but peace. Okay? So thank you all for being most fantastic. Let's see if anybody has any questions, comments. I'm willing to take it on. Okay, Vamika wants me to explain the crime and punishment. Can we just go back to that slide, please? Crime and punishment. You have the book, Crime, you have thank you. It is when your spirit goes wandering upon the wind that you alone and unguarded commit a wrong unto others and therefore unto yourself. He's also not judging. There are times when we unwittingly, that he says, spirit goes wandering upon. He's a poet, so I'm a prosaic person, so I can't express it as beautifully as he does. But the essence of it is that, there are times, so one has to be kind to oneself. There are times when we, lower our guards. Somebody may say falsehoods. Somebody may compromise on their morals. There are all kinds of temptations. Somebody may do some hanky-panky with finances. It's not for us to judge. What he's simply saying is, and this I can completely lay at the feet of Buddha, that you commit a wrong unto others. So if you put some pebble in a muck, in a trough of muck, you think that little bit of muck is not going to come and stain your clothes, your persona, literally and metaphorically. So there is no escape. If you're doing it, and he's giving humanity the benefit of doubt, fine, it couldn't be premeditated, it couldn't be deliberate, but Bible says errors of omission and commission, whether you do it willingly, wittingly, unwittingly, the deed is done. And every imprint now, the West is swallowing the bitter pill of the karmic theory that aeons, millennia ago, our civilizational memory and history is replete with. Because they need proof. That is why I know that we as a civilizational people have a higher intellect, because I've been fortunate enough to visit many parts of the world. the kind of understanding that an average Indian in the village, and I think, it's my personal thesis that the finest minds of India reside in its villages. How the world is agog that India has taken to the digital. I mean, that 90-year-old woman who's sitting on the roadside in that scorching heat has that little mobile where she is enhancing her business prospects. So we've taken to the digital world like duck to water, and the whole world is agog with that. So coming back to this, commit a wrong unto others and therefore unto yourself. There is no escape. It tarnishes the soul, and the soul will carry the imprint into many, many, many lifetimes, because they are such decent people who have not harmed a fly. Then where is all this coming? And they are going on a roller coaster of this, that, and the other. It's all got to do with their past, which has come visiting in whichever lifetime. That's not in our control. So better to watch out what we are doing. That is why this whole idea of raised, heightened consciousness that the whole world is talking about. You see, any damn reel, pardon my language, any reel, anything, whatever. I'm not much of a social media person, but whatever that surrounds us, it's all about breathing. What all is that? It's to take us, what Sadhguru calls inner engineering. You can use any terminology. You can use any process. Name it. It's there. So my whole purpose and why she said I was over enthusiastic, I must confess, because I believe my gurus taught me catch them young. All I endeavor to do through this, what I meant to do through this session, was to sow the seed. I may never meet you in my lifetime, but to sow the seed of reflection, of heightened consciousness as responsible lawyers. What is it that are we willing to sell our souls in the name of good accounts that our law firms are going to reward us with a couple of lakhs of bonus or whatever that goes? I'm not into that corporate law world, though I have close friends whose children are into it. So some rumblings do enter my eardrums. But it is with that intent, the purity of intent, to sow the seed so that you not only evolve as human beings. That's the whole idea of the book, The Prophet. If some of you have not already bought it, I would strongly recommend you all to buy it. It's a thin, not hole in the pocket kind of that was another reason why I selected that, because I know how pressed you are for time. It's a struggle, but the struggle is part of our journey. We cannot escape. There is no El Dorado. But the more we make merry in this struggle, the waves, you have to learn to ride the waves. And there's no such thing called why me. This answers that. Why me? We did it to somebody. It's coming back. There is no why me. That's what Buddhism says. It's shadow boxing. It's your own shadow. You can't blame. It says, if you were all right, your whatever the commerce terminology is, your balance sheet, if it were perfectly entered, you would have attained nirvana. You wouldn't be here. The fact that we are here is about suffering. Therefore, you cannot blame the agent that brings the suffering. We are responsible. No mentor in Buddhist philosophy will say, oh, so your mother-in-law is wicked. Okay, so your husband is an alcoholic. Okay, so your husband is a womanizer. No. It's never encouraged. says that you have to clean up. It's a manifestation of what you've done kalpas ago. That's why it's a very serious practice, because you are held responsible. You cannot do this. You just can't. And that's what Crime and Punishment chapter talks about, apart from many other things. I have just highlighted that which I wanted to reach out to you. There are layers. It's not justice. So I would want you to go back to of laws of crime and punishment. And also, as an adjunct reading, even if you read one paragraph, someday you will finish it. Fyodor Dostoevsky's of Crime and Punishment. Fantastic book. And brothers Karamazov, again, because it's a Russian name, if I'm mispronouncing, just Google, you will get the right name. Fantastic. Fyodor. Russian literature is one thing I would prescribe. We all read English, we all read American. Just, it's very young in terms of less than 200 plus years, deeply profound. I love it. And begin with short stories. So shall we end the session? Thank you so much for joining, and I hope it brought some value to your evening, and I hope to have some ripple effect in some hearts, and then I would feel that it has been worth it. Thank you. Thank you, Surbhi, once again.
Ma'am, I think Aishma wants to say something.
Yes.
Of course, lots of kids have written lots of notes for you. We'll share the chat script.
Yes, please do later.
Priya has written lots of these things. Aishma, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Ashma?
Yes, ma'am. A heartfelt vote of thanks to Meenakshi ma'am for leading this enlightening discussion on Kahlil Gibran's The Prophet. Your analysis and your thoughts were really touching and very guiding, but also very insightful at the same time. Thank you. Like really, I'm really grateful for you being here to teach us and sharing your enriching expertise with all of us. We are really grateful for the opportunity to explore this timeless masterpiece and to engage in this wonderful session. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Ashma. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aishma. Thank you so much, ma'am, and everyone who was here. I hope those who haven't read will be motivated to read, as some of the chats say. So we'll come back with another book, and hopefully ma'am can give us one more evening in the near future. Thank you so much.
I would love to share, but I don't know, because I was very conscious of the time crunch these youngsters have. There's a fantastic book by Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief. It's fantastic. I love it. How your thinking can change your DNA. You know, he was thrown out of Stanford because of that. And finally, University of Hawaii took him in. My first choice was that, actually. But then I realized the constraints with these youngsters are working, and I completely empathize. But I also urge very earnestly to each one of you that there is no roseate world that we all inhabit. Everybody has their crosses to bear. The point is, where the success lies, as far as I think, that's my understanding of life. How are you going to make merry in between the intervals? You know, Joe, in between, all of you are cricket. Cricket is a religion in our country. All of you, I'm sure, are cricket aficionados and fans. You know, this in between wicket jo running se hi to sare matches jeete aate hain. Boundaries to kabhi kabhi out kara deti hain. We kind of get laid off. So I believe in the in between running of the wickets, and that's the success formula. And by the way, as a closing remark, Surbhi, if you may allow, I'll just quickly share. I forgot to share because his name escaped me. You can check, I'm sure, because I read it on the internet only. His school teacher in Lebanon, Gibran's, you know, so he said, because Gibran was highly intelligent, so his flight was towards creativity was tremendous. So then he said, baby steps, you know, one step at a time on the ladder, Kahlil. So the young Kahlil, who was barely 7 or 8 years old, told his school teacher, but does a bird need to climb the ladder? Just imagine.
How
The
lovely.
bird, yeah, the bird takes flight.
Yeah.
And very quickly, to also add to this, that he willed a large part of his earnings and royalty from his books to his native place in Lebanon, but it got mired into, that whatever those formalities are in terms of law. So it didn't really help the city as he wanted it to. That I should have shared in the introductory, but it escaped my mind. So thank you.
No, miss, it was a lovely discussion, and some of the children have written they would love to read Biology of Belief. So we can schedule that very soon. And thank you so much for your valuable time. And
And
we would
thank you, Surbhi, for giving me this opportunity. And at any point of time, uh, if they are willing, we can engage outside once they're through with the exams, if they come on board, because I believe you do have alumni progression program
yes,
you track. So anytime, I mean, because that's the commitment I have. That's my drop in the ocean to the youth of our country.
that's wonderful to know. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, thank
Have a
you.
great night, everyone.
Thank you.
And you are getting lots of thank yous in the chat box, miss. So
So do share
yes,
this.
I'll share the script with you, and it has been a lovely session, as I can see from the chat box.
I just hope that
Yes,
they are not just words of politeness, because again, Professor Raj Bisaria taught and warned us that politeness must not be mistaken for intimacy. So
yes,
I'm replaying that in a different way, not exactly that. So
yes,
I hope they are words of earnest appreciation and not just politeness. I'd rather not have that. I'd rather have the brickbat so that I can grow as a sharing person. I don't call myself a teacher. It's all about whatever I feel passionate about. I'd love to share with all of you. Thank you.
right, miss. Thank you so much.
Thank you.